I immediately realized the situation was very serious, and thank God I had the chance of saying bye to my father. I was, um,
Welcome, guys. This is Max with the channel of Max Orlevich and Lighthouse Mentors, where we teach young men how to forge a life of purpose. And I have the exclusive pleasure today to speak with Luca Lampariello, who's an inspiration to me and many people. And we will uncover the person behind the language learning myth that is Luca.
thank
Luca,
you.
welcome.
Thank you for the lovely introduction, Max, as always.
It's good to have you here in Warsaw.
Yeah.
And I would like to talk to you today about a side of you that a lot of people probably don't know, which is more the personal background and your upbringing.
Right.
So let's start at the very roots, the very beginning of your journey before you became a polyglot who speaks
Right.
many, many languages, which is where did you grow up and what do you remember your childhood being like?
So I was born in Rome, born and raised in Rome, and I remember a very nice childhood, surrounded by books. And my mother, my father, my grandma was an important figure, and they sparked my curiosity to learn stuff. Let's put it this way: it was not always languages. At the beginning, it was more about mathematics and also Latin, French. But I remember I have very good memories from my childhood. In particular, I remember I was at the summer house that we had in Terracina, 100 kilometers from Rome, and I remember being spending a lot of time in the garden reading books. And I have to say, it was a very positive experience. I have very positive memories, although, and we'll probably talk about that. In particular, my father was a little bit strict, and my father's side, they were, resolute, and they wanted me to become. They had very good and precise ideas of what education means. Sometimes to the detriment of emotional intelligence. Let's put it this way: they put a lot of weight in academic, intellectual, growth, and let's say less. They were leaning less towards the emotional side of life, while my mother provided a very good framework for that. In particular, I always like saying that my mother was the heart and my father was the brain.
Very cool. So why do you think that might be? Do you think, I mean, the part that you just mentioned there, that maybe your father's side wasn't so much focused on the emotional side, maybe there was a lack of awareness there. What do you think? Is that like a generational thing?
I think it's a generation thing, and in particular within that family, within that side of the family, there was no awareness about emotional intelligence. They didn't even know that that's a thing. So they always said, okay, you have to study hard, you have to become an intellectual, you have to learn mathematics, the hard sciences. There was like always, I heard this, all the time, that hard sciences, scientific matters, subjects are those that count, and all the rest is just somewhat a hobby. Now, I don't want to picture my father's side of the family in a bad light, because I always think that everybody has something to contribute to your life, be it negative or positive, and I'm really happy that I'm very privileged that I was born and raised within the family that gave me a lot of things. But we have to admit that not in every family there's always pros and cons because we're human beings, right? So that's it in a nutshell. I think that you hit the nail on the head when you say there was a lack of awareness when it comes to emotional intelligence. And I think it's a generational thing, but people talk about emotional intelligence these days, but not a lot of people know exactly what that means, because neither in the family, they don't provide that kind of training. Let's put it this way. And I don't know about Germany, but in Italy, they don't talk about emotional intelligence.
Sure.
So they give us instructions on how to learn, how to do the homework, but nobody has ever really taught us how to navigate this complicated life.
Sure. I think it's a pretty recent phenomenon, and like you said, it's still being negotiated as to exactly what it means, right?
Exactly.
Emotional intelligence. So I think I've known you now for about 5 years, which is funny because
that fateful night where we met in Warsaw, and
you're right, exactly. But the funny thing is that I actually knew about you even way before that, and I didn't actually, I guess, feel the need or muster the courage to write to you and get to know you earlier, because I was in a sort of a language learning phase back in 2011, 2012. That's when I first found you online, but I didn't write you until 2020. And now we've been friends for 5 years, and it's been really a very inspirational ride knowing you. But today, of course, we're going to be focusing less on the language learning experience, but at the same time trying to take some of the most important ingredients of
Takeaways,
that and
ingredients.
takeaways, and with, especially this idea of falling in love with the process, right? How do you look at what language learning can teach us in terms of becoming a man, and how has your father helped you become a man?
This is a very interesting question. And I've been thinking about this because through the language lens, there's even a very interesting book that is called Through the Language Glass, not Lens. But you can actually understand a lot of things about how education works, how certain emotions and certain patterns get passed down from generation to generation, and what it means to be a man. I think that you were talking about this before, the process. I've learned that the process, the focusing on the process, is a very important thing, right? Let me give an example in relationship to being a man. For example, people tend to focus. We live in a goal-oriented world where people tend to sometimes be fixated on when am I going to get there. You know, for example, Donkey in Trek 2, they are going towards far, far away with Fiona, and Donkey asks all the time, when are we going to get there? When are we going to get there? When are we going to get there? Which is a very common question that my students ask. When am I going to get fluent in a language? And this reflects on what happens in life. When am I going to get a girlfriend? When am I going to get a degree? When am I going to... It's always constantly thinking and projecting towards a future that still does not exist. So the very first thing that I've learned from language learning, and then, leveraging this lesson in life in general, is that it's really important to focus on the process rather than the goal. So whatever you want to do, getting a degree, finding yourself a girlfriend, establishing good relationships with your friends, etc. Focus on the process of what you can do every single day to be a better version of yourself, right? A better version of the man you were yesterday. This is a very important lesson. The other lesson is the other big lesson I would say is that this compound effect of doing little things, which relates to point number one, of doing small steps and small things every single day. So think about 1, 2, or 3 important things that you want to accomplish in life, and break them down into what is the thing that I can do today in order to get closer to that one goal that I have right now. For example, you want to get better, you're going to get fit, you want to be mentally fit, you want to get more emotional intelligence. Run some experiments every day or on a weekly basis on, for example, hey, I'm going to run for 10 minutes a day. I'm going to run for 15 minutes a day. I'm going to hit the gym. I'm going to start doing some push-ups. For emotional intelligence, you can try little experiments of, oh, what does it mean to be emotional intelligence? Look it up and ask Gemini, now that we have Gemini, or we have a guy like this, who, like this one, who helps you design small, short experiments that you can apply every single day. So the step-by-step process is really important. Like, okay, what are the 10 things or the 5 things I can do this week, testing them on people and on yourself to grow my emotional intelligence. And by the way, emotional intelligence means understanding yourself first, because if you understand yourself, you will be able also, through yourself, to understand others.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's another thing that I've learned through the language lens or the language glass.
Right.
And then another thing I would say, that we were talking about this morning, when people ask you, what is the purpose of life, right? Some people get lost in life, they get bored, they don't have a direction. This is what happened to me when, back in the day in 2010, this is one of the pivotal moments of my life, breakthrough moments, when I was asking myself, what the hell am I doing here? I was in Paris, it was snowing, I had just moved towards Paris.
Yeah.
And I had just joined my ex-girlfriend, and I was looking for a job, not even actively looking for a job.
She was your girlfriend at the time.
She was my girlfriend at the time, yes.
Yeah.
My French girlfriend at the time, and I was asking myself, what's the purpose of what I'm doing here? I'm learning languages. I don't have a direction. So if you don't have a direction right now, that's pretty normal. That's the most normal thing. Actually, it would be weird if at the ripe age of 15, 16, or 20, you already knew exactly what you wanted. Some people do, most people don't. So you have to find it you have to know yourself first. This has been around for like 2,000 years. Know yourself. But knowing yourself means that you have to ask yourself the right questions. And once again, this is related to language learning. You have to ask yourself, why am I not Why am I struggling? Why am I not succeeding? And you have to have the courage sometimes to really be radically honest with yourself and tell yourself, something is messed up with my life. I need to change it. And that is self-awareness. And you build self-awareness through training or through mentoring, because nobody was born knowing exactly what the purpose of their life was. You
Right.
discover it on the go. Just
Yeah.
just to give you three examples
Right.
of how I leveraged the lessons I've learned through the language learning lens, and I've applied it to my life.
Absolutely. Um, so you said a bunch of interesting things just now.
Opening a can of worms. You can talk about this
Yeah,
for hours.
exactly. But I would like to come back to a little bit of the story with your father, if you don't mind, because I myself come from a household of more of a nice guy father who was very soft, didn't expect much, and you seem to come from kind of the opposite, where there was a lot of stuff being demanded.
Yeah.
Your father seems to have been a challenging dad, and I think that in a way is a boon, right? That is a gift.
I didn't see it at the time as a boon, but yes,
Yeah.
in the long term, that was a huge boon. It was a huge advantage, because what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, as Nietzsche used to say. And so what happened basically is that my father was very strict. He had a very strict education, and he imparted that education upon us, me, my sister, and my twin sister, and my brother. And
Oh, you're a twin.
yes,
I actually knew that.
I got a twin sister. You're
Yeah.
pretending not to know.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that sometimes my father was very demanding, not only my father, but also the entire side, my father's side, like the family, the side of the family. And I have to say that forged, let's say, the way I see life. Because if life is not challenging, then you don't grow.
But can you actually give me a practical example of what he would
Sure.
expect of you every single day?
Just to give an example, right?
Yeah.
When I was at university, when I went back home and I had 30, in university you have 30 or 30 e lode. It's the best of the best. When you got 30, my father used to say, e la lode, where it's like cum laude, right? So just to give an example. Or he was very strict in general when you had to do things. He was a mathematician, an engineer, a mathematician. He was very, precise in what he did, calm, precise, and meticulous. Something I was not. And in general, I'm meticulous when it comes to language learning. Yeah, but the fact that he was so strict kind of made me the person I am today. Meaning that, in a way, if things have been soft and too easy, what happens down the line at the beginning, it's comfortable, it's like it's convenient is a better term, but then down the line you're lost. While the relationship with my father was tumultuous sometimes, at times tumultuous, but it was very, I would say, very helpful, because then life still throws stuff at you all the time. It's difficult, but that really helped down the line forge, let's say, design the purpose, the discipline, the vision I had of who I wanted to become. My father, by the way, was kind of disappointed that I did pursue a career in university, but at the end of the day, I ended up working with languages. I think another, maybe the biggest lesson I've learned from learning foreign languages is that you have to listen to your intuition, to your gut feeling, to your heart, whatever you want to call it. And the gut feeling or the intuition is screaming at you sometimes, and you have to hear it. And what I mean by that is that, yes, my father really was insisting. He really wanted me to basically pursue his own career, but at the end of the day, sometimes we're different individuals. I ended up doing exactly what I wanted to do, and in that fateful winter of 2010, I just fully realized, I don't want to work with mathematics and engineering. I want to work with languages, communication, and people,
Yeah.
right? I don't want to work with numbers. I want to work with words. And my father was disappointed at the beginning, but then at the end, he accepted that. Even when I had an interview with the radio, the national Italian radio, when I came back home, because my father had listened to the interview, and he said, I really like what you said, that you cannot teach languages, but you can learn them by yourself. And I was moved, because my father has always been strict. He had never paid a compliment. And if things went really well, that was good. He didn't say anything. When I messed up things, which was most of the time, my father always had something to say. But then at that, like when I was 30, 32, I don't remember exactly, then he fully recognized, okay, Luca's chosen a path for himself. That's the biggest lesson. You have to have the courage of listening to your voice and pursue the pattern that really is calling for you, instead of listening to these voices that drown your real call. And you
Absolutely.
will find it sooner or later. Maybe you don't have it, it's not clear, but you will find it.
Cool. I mean, what I find particularly interesting is that your father seems to have challenged you early on, and then kind of questioned some of the things, some of the choices you made by your first sort of foray into languages. And he was
Yes,
challenging that. He was questioning the sense of that, because he said like languages are not the purpose of life; they are just a tool, right?
exactly. He used
And
to say that all the time. Yeah.
yeah, and but then eventually you came around and saw that what you had created for yourself was actually also a life of purpose, even
Yeah.
though it was maybe foreign to him originally.
Yeah.
That you could find purpose in languages,
That's
or let's
exactly
say
right.
craft a profession around language.
Yeah, when people ask me what's the purpose of life, it's a life of purpose. I know that this sounds a little bit like trivial,
Yeah.
but it's true. A life of purpose is that I wake up every single morning happy about what I do. It's like, imagine when you have a work that you hate and you have to wake up first thing in the morning, you grab your cup of coffee and then, gosh, I have to work and I have to do this damn work that I don't like. Well, me, I really like my work. So when you like what you do, you love what you do, and you do what you love, then at the end of the day, you're leading a meaningful life, and that is what counts. But in order to get there, then you have to question yourself. You have to question yourself. You have to question your beliefs. You have to question your emotions, and most of all, you also have to question the emotions, the beliefs, the behavior, the patterns, the attitude of your own parents, because your parents got that from their parents, and this gets passed down generation from generation. So when you're talking about the relationship you have with your father, with your mother, with your grandmother, with your grandfather, and with your peers, all that shapes the man you are, the decisions you make, and you have to have the courage of breaking from that and say, okay, now I'm gonna really take it one step further and question why I think the way I do, why I act the way I do.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, but that being said, I mean, obviously, from coming from a what 40-something-year-old, or even
40, 44, pushing 45.
all right. Well, I mean, that's something that you have created for yourself. That sort of awareness. That sort of, because it comes with experience, right? What do you
Yes.
recommend, or what do you suggest a young guy, 15, 16, 17, can do to expedite the process and not wait until 40 or 30 or whatever it happens to be, until he can find out these things about himself? Like,
Yeah.
is a mentor necessary, or just helpful?
Okay, so a couple of things. First, for me, it's been a work in progress over the last 30 years. I've been keeping a journal since I was 13 or 14. So every single day, first thing in the morning, I write for an extensive period of time. I haven't done it every single day, but almost every single day, which is part of my discipline, is to write about my emotions and my thoughts. You know, when you wake up first thing in the morning, you have fragments of thoughts coming from the previous days that you want to put together, and you want to give meaning to what your brain is concocting, right? Unbeknownst to you. And my first piece of advice for people who are like, as of now, if you're 13, 14, 15, 16, even 18, even 20, even 22, because you're still young, is to seriously contemplate the idea of writing a journal or writing small things every single day, because being aware of your thought patterns, we have the same thought patterns over and over. Unless we break away from that, these are recurring patterns all the time. So the very first thing is awareness. I'm aware that my thought patterns depend on my brain, and my brain is shaped by the environment, is shaped by my life, etc., etc. The second thing is possibly to start journaling even for 10 minutes a day. What happened yesterday? Ask yourself, how am I feeling today and why? Simple things. A mentor can scale that up, meaning that if you get a mentor, you can start by yourself. I always believe that working on this yourself is the most important thing, but having a mentor can really help you because they have the experience that you lack. So this goes for everything. When you have a coach for in business, language learning, whatever, personal growth, they've walked the path. They can pave the way for accelerating this thing that you want to build. So in short, the answer is yes. Start an awareness journey. The awareness is built by noticing things every day. It can be small things. You can scale up. You can start journaling, because when you write, type, or handwrite, that really helps put some order into your thoughts.
Yeah.
And a mentor can speed that up tenfold. An experienced mentor can really help, speed things up and get there faster.
And so, did you have a specific mentor at the time, or even now? Like, did you have one or two key figures in your life that helped you, other than your father, perhaps, that helped you scale and 10x your progress?
Well, I don't know whether I've scaled my progress, in the sense that this has been slow. This has been a slow process for me. I've been relying mainly on myself, and I think that unconsciously I've learned from some people I look up to, either dead or alive. Einstein is one of them. By reading a lot, for example, Einstein, or Adriano, l'imperatore Adriano, say in Italian, the Adrian, the emperor. So by reading a lot, Seneca, Adriano, I've been assimilating these thoughts, these lessons, right? But the process has been kind of slow, depending on whatever you define slow or not. Nowadays, we live in an accelerated world where AI can really help. I'm saying talk to people first and foremost, especially about emotional stuff. But machines can also help. Don't see them as, it's a devil, right? I'm talking to a robot, because robots actually know human patterns, right? They know language, and they know human patterns embedded in the language. So I wouldn't go so far. I wouldn't say that it's been speeded. It's been a slow process, but I would say over the last 3-4 years, it's been speeding up thanks to more awareness, more experience, AI, and these things. But I wouldn't say that I've found one specific figure that has skyrocketed everything all of a sudden. It's been a slow process of things piling up. Oh, I've learned this thing. I can leverage this thing in order to learn this one and this one and this one. But again, nowadays, if people want it, they can really speed up this process. But I also believe that there's a natural progression of things, of growing up, of living experiences.
For sure. Well, you have to go through experiences, right?
You have to go
A
through the
mentor.
motions, and you have to go through experiences. Like a mentor will tell you, you have to go through this.
Yeah, exactly. He cannot do it for you. I think the best thing he can do for you is give you that push and continuously push you, because he's your accountability buddy, and he watches you, and he's interested, hopefully invested
Yes.
in your progress.
Absolutely correct. The accountability counts, but also another thing, which is one of the lessons I've learned through language learning, is mistakes. Now, we live in a world where in our educational system, they have taught us, our parents have learned that, our grandparents have learned that, you have learned that, I've learned that making mistakes is a bad thing. Think about what happens at school. Then when you got you're terrified because you're performing, whether it's mathematics, language, you're performing in front of the entire class, right? So you're judged because of that. And mistakes are seen like they're stigmatized. There's a stigma to making mistakes. But in language learning, and that's the lesson I've learned that I transferred into my life, making mistakes is the single most important factor of growth. Because if you make a mistake, this is where a mentor can really make a difference. The mentor can help you frame that mistake in a different light, saying this is not a mistake, this is experience.
Yeah, exactly.
So imagine framing something like, I tried to kiss a girl, and the girl turned me down. This is terrible for guys at the beginning. You've never kissed. This is a very concrete example, because there are validating factors, there are valuable factors. But kissing a girl for the first time can turn into a disaster if it doesn't go the right way. A mentor could help you frame that of, this is a big lesson of what you've learned. Like it can be, flunking an exam, being turned out by a girl, having a fight with your friend and losing him. You can reframe things and ask yourself the one question that really is going to move the needle. And that is, what can I learn from this experience that it happened, and how can I make it better, or can avoid repeating the same experience again?
Absolutely.
And this is what really makes a difference.
I totally agree. And do you think that maybe today there's the problem of people just not seeking out the help because we're just so stuck in digital worlds? What kind of do you ever see this with your students, perhaps maybe younger students who rely too much on apps like Duolingo to learn a language, as opposed to like seeking out the face-to-face connection with people and actually using the language in real life?
It depends on the learner. I think I think the biggest problem is there's three main problems that language learners have, and I think this concerns everything. I don't know if you ever heard of Susan Kruger. Susan Kruger is a psychologist who talks about the triangle of success. If you want to acquire any skill, and again, emotional intelligence is a skill, leading your life in a meaningful way is a skill in and of itself. There are three main components. The first one is your mindset. And by the way, also, Carl Dweck has an amazing book which is called Mindset. Then you have the strategies, so the tactics, I say, the techniques that you apply to make that happen. And then you have the organizational side of life. So mindset is the way you see things, right? Again, if you have let's say, a fixed mindset, if you flunk an exam, you're going to think, I'm not good at this, I'll never change. While a growth mindset is, I can change, my brain is plastic, I can learn everything. I've made a mistake, I will leverage that mistake in order to improve. So the mindset is really, really important because the psychological factor is everything in acquisition, in any skill acquisition. Then you have the strategies, once again, these techniques that you can apply. And then you have the organizational side, and that is how you organize your time, how you organize your energy, how you organize your focus. These are very important things, right? And I think language learners they're not good in any of these for a number of reasons. A lot of language learners, come to think of it, in life, that's the same thing. Yeah. Think about fixed versus growth mentality. When people, well, this is very common for people who are 14, 15. Nobody has ever taught them. They don't even know what mindset means, right? Yeah. The second thing is the strategies. How do you apply good learning strategies? And I'm not talking about language learning strategies. I'm talking about how to learn strategies, how to be a better student. And then the organizational side is maybe people spend all their time playing video games, being stuck, and they're going to go there and using Instagram or TikTok. Imagine how much time you squander and you waste, right? So, but going back to the question you asked me, I'm not sure whether people are relying too much on robots, or they have a tendency of not seeking out help. It really depends on the learner. It really depends on their mentality. I still believe that a savvy combination of working on yourself, of using AI, and reaching out for someone who has walked the path and has valuable insight into life is an excellent combination. It's not just one thing. Right. Oh, I'm just going to be spending the whole day with ChatGPT telling me I kissed that girl and she turned me down. Why is that happening? You need the human connection, right? So you need all three.
Right. I don't think ChatGPT really knows why the girl turned you down. I mean, there's just too much. There are too many possible reasons. True. And we might never know him.
But if you give him enough context, it can give you some pointers. It can help you clarify things. I think the most valuable thing for when it comes to ChatGPT is ask ChatGPT to reframe the experience. Yeah. Maybe ChatGPT will not know exactly what happened in the mind of that girl or that guy or that person. We're not just talking about romantic relationships. We're talking about maybe you had a fallout with a colleague. They might not know what they thought, but they can identify patterns, and most of all, they can help you reframe the situation, because at the end of the day, 10% is what happens to your life and 90% is how you react to it. I firmly believe in this because I've seen it firsthand.
Absolutely. Wow. So it's clear that from your upbringing, it's clear that you are not a nice guy.
I'm an appy.
You are a nice person, but you're not the symptom of the nice guy being like a kind of a pathology, right? Like in that sense.
Right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Nice guy. So because I am a nice guy, but not that kind of nice guy.
Exactly. So and it seems to me that you didn't struggle with that as much as perhaps I have, and a lot of people nowadays are struggling with that. So you didn't really ever struggle from a lack of confidence, right?
I have my own doubts, but now I've become more confident because confidence is something you build. It's not something you were born with. So I was not born with confidence. Actually, I'll tell you what, my father is not only my father, was one of the reasons why I was full of doubts about everything I did. About my own intelligence, about dating girls, about my career, about my life, about what I wanted. But then, now then at the ripe age of 44, after having lived all that until the age of 30, I was full of doubts. Like everybody else, everybody should be full of doubts in a way, but good doubts, not bad doubts. You shouldn't doubt your intelligence. You should maybe doubt some of the choices you make and thinking, okay, once again, let's reframe the consequences. Let's reframe my choices. Let's reframe my life circumstances. Let's reframe and be more, maybe instead of reframing, let's be more aware of my thought patterns. No, I was not born confident.
No.
And now you see that I consider myself a confident person in the sense that I've seen that the human brain can accomplish anything you want. This is another big lesson I've learned through learning 14 foreign languages. People normally tell me they either I am met with skepticism or I'm met with admiration. So it's either, are you sure you actually speak 14 languages? Which level? These are the skeptics. And then you have admiration. Oh my God, you must be a genius. And the reality is, that I'm not a genius. I'm a normal person. I might have a knack for languages, especially for imitating accents and sounds, but you can be gifted, very gifted when it comes to that. But the reality is you still have to learn the language. You still have to go through the motions. You still have to sit down, learn, speak, relearn, make mistakes, find yourself in very awkward situations. So once again, language learning has taught me that the brain is really powerful. When you want to accomplish anything, you want to be a very, accomplished individual, whatever you want to accomplish, you just have to put in the work and you have to know yourself. And you know yourself by putting in the work. So the two things actually help each other, because when you work on something and when you get results, you say, I actually got results, and that pushes you to do something else, to get out of your comfort zone, to try something. To another very interesting thing that I've learned is that we have this, we carry with us this student mentality of not venturing out of our comfort zone. Once again, it comes from school. Well, the best way to go about life is run little experiments every single week. You do something, and when you have a doubt, the only way to eliminate that doubt is to try, test, and see what happens. Whenever you have a fear, a doubt, that can be blocking you. But if you run experiments so that you see everything through the lens of, this is an experiment. So I'm a scientist of my own life. I have this playground. My life is this huge playground. I'm gonna run this experiment. It might go bad. It might go well. If it goes well, okay, I've had a hypothesis. I tested it. If it goes poorly, then what you do is that, okay, let's go back to the drawing board and let's try something else. Well, people never do that. This reflects into, I'm a business owner right now. Most business people are afraid of making choices and trying something new. They want to stay within their cocoon, their comfort zone. You got to try something new, test it, see if it works, and implement and build upon that. But again, the business owner has gone to school, has the student mentality, and we all have the student mentality that, in a way, we're afraid of life and we're afraid of testing things. Well, the best way to do stuff is test, see, and see if it works or not. And as a business owner, I told you I was creating courses. It took me ages to create the perfect course. Well, the best course of action is to create a course, minimal viable product, test it, see if it works. If it doesn't work, you try something else, but you haven't consumed that much time trying to do that. And if it works, you scale. You just
Exactly. Like Steve Jobs said, real artists ship.
exactly.
So you just get the minimum viable product out there as soon as possible, and then you adjust a course based on the feedback you get.
Exactly, but the problem is
It's not easy to do.
You know this, but still in the back of your mind, the emotional part of your brain is telling you otherwise.
Right, and then the sort of the perfectionism is very strong, and at least in me, always.
But
has been.
the perfectionist in you, the perfectionism comes from an entire system you've been navigating, you've been operating in, which is a school system plus your family plus everything else.
How do you look at the idea of a rite of passage, and do you think you had one in good old MB in Monteverde Vecchio? Was there a key experience or moment that you went through that you feel like that made you all of a sudden make a huge leap in terms of how courageous or experienced you were?
I would say I call them quantum leaps, life quantum leaps, not lips, but leaps. I would say the first one was, again, I can tell you some memorable, some memories I still have in my head. That was when I was 10, and we were at this summer house, my beautiful garden, and my grandmother was sitting at the veranda, and she said, "Can you come here and hey Luca, why don't we do some mathematics, some Latin, some Greek?" And there I discovered the beauty of learning. That's the first thing. The other thing is,
So your grandmother was almost like your first mentor in that regard.
I would say she was the first mentor. She was the very first mentor. And mind you, one of the main reasons why she was the first mentor, it's not just because we were learning things together, she was showing me stuff, it's the example that she set. It's just at the ripe age, ripe in Anführungszeichen, in quote unquote, at the ripe age of 80, she was super eager to learn. That for me was amazing in and of itself. You know, if you think as a 10-year-old who's supposed to play with other children at the beach, and then you have this grandmother who's sitting there, she's 80, she's still learning, avidly learning. So she was learning with me. She was not just teaching me, she
Right.
was learning new things by teaching me, by showing me stuff, which was the first thing that the big example, the first example was my grandmother. And then the other thing, I don't know if it's a pivotal moment, but I would say at the age of 19, I flunked the first physics exam, and I came back home, and my father, who's a mathematician, just looked at the exam and said, "Luca, instead of seeing things like this looks complicated, but it's actually simple." My father showed me that sometimes life looks complicated, but if you stop it for a second and reflect, things are way simpler. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of what the exam actually was, etc., etc., but I still remember to this day the impact that the words of my father said. Like, I still remember, use your brain. He said that. He made this gesture, like, usa il cervello. Hai un cervello, usalo. No, you got a brain, use it. And then the next time that I did the exam, I passed it in flying colors, as they say, not because I knew more, but because I had learned, my mindset had been shaped and improved by that one, by the words of my father saying, you have a brain, use it, right? And that's another
So-
big thing. And then one more thing, that was when I was, the snow was falling, I was in Paris, and there I decided to be a language coach or a
Age
language teacher.
29.
At the ripe age of age 29, it was December 2010. The snow was falling, and I was telling myself, what do I do? Should I be an engineer or whatever? And then I got this email from a student who said, "Do you want to be my teacher?" Then and there, I decided I don't want to follow the well-trodden path of becoming an engineer, working for a company, and that's it. I wanted to do something else. That was another right. I wouldn't call it a rite of passage, but it's a pivotal moment of my life, you know. And going back in time, another, I think, rite of passage was when I kissed my first girl. Now, I know that some people might smile at because it's always romantic. Oh, look at the girls. Also, girls have an impact of how you see yourself as a man, right? And I remember I was in Ireland. I was not very sure myself as a 15-year-old. One of the most common things of a teenager, doubts about girls. Am I handsome? Do girls like me or not? And I had a very good experience in Ireland, and apparently Irish girls like me more than Italian girls, or for whatever reason. I kissed my first girl, and I still remember that fateful night where I came back home, and I thought, the world could be in your hands if you wanted to. Like, sometimes you tend to think that the world is how you see it, but the world is just the way you perceive the world changes your life. So any situation, you find yourself in any situation with any person, the way you act and react to that person is really going to design the results you get from your life. So that was another rite of, I would call it the ultimate rite of passage as a teenager of, okay, there's a before and there's an after. And in fact, there was a before and there was an after in the way I lived my life. Because also at school, my confidence grew, not only as a man, but as a person. So that was another huge thing at the ripe age of 15, July 1996. I will never forget that.
Amazing.
Amazing.
I love it. This is a very personal question, but if you would indulge me, because I know that your parents passed some years ago, both of them, how has that changed you in terms of becoming a more mature person and possibly also becoming more of a man even than you were before that?
Well, First of all, I would say that I saw my parents pass away in front of me, both of them, at different times. And oddly enough, that was a liberating moment. Of course, it was really difficult, especially with my mom, but also with my father. And that gave me a lot of perspective in life. Think about when you have worries, when you think about that person thought that about me, or I messed up. Think that in 50 years, 60 years, we're all going to be dead. And the memento mori, the philosophers, ancient Roman philosophers talk about that. Just made me realize life is short. This is trivial. We know this for a fact, but when you experience it, when you see your parents pass away, that you see everything in a completely different life. So live, when you say seize the day, live the moment, live the day. I think that really made a difference, and of course that made me stronger and more resilient, and more peaceful in a way. I know that this might sound strange, because you might say, well, you can curse the rain and curse life, and complain about the fact that life is sometimes is terrible, and you saw your parents pass away. But for me, especially when my father passed away, because my sister had called me on the phone, she said, Dad fell, and he's not in good condition, and she was crying on the phone. I understood that was pretty serious. I rushed back from Portugal. I was there for a conference. I rushed back to Rome, and I immediately realized the situation was very serious. And thank God I had the chance of saying bye to my father. Um, I was whispering to my father when he was passing away. So say,
Wow.
thank you for everything. Yeah. So.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That I mean, the thing is that I have had I have such an intimate relationship with my parents, and still do, that I also have a hard time picturing what it might be like to go through that. But even
It's tough,
yeah,
but liberating. It's in a good way.
thank you so much for talking to us today, Luca. Where can people find you?
They can just write Luca Lampariello on YouTube, and they will find my channel. And if they write Luca Lampariello on Google, they will find my website, where I have online courses on how to learn languages, workshops, courses,
That's right.
coaching, and everything in between.
That's right, because with Luca, fellow dudes, you can learn you essentially learn how to learn. You learn how to teach yourself, or acquire a language. It's not like Luca will teach you Greek or teach you Turkish. Luca teaches you the system he has built for any
Level.
right? It doesn't matter if you're at the beginner level or the intermediate level or the advanced level. You can take it to the next level thanks to learning how to learn, which is a skill in and of itself. And
Yes.
that's what I have actually, one of the first things I came away with when I first started knowing you is learning how to learn is a skill in and of itself.
I think it's the most important skill in the 21st century. Learning how to learn, not only language learning, but in everything.
Exactly. Which is why there's this beautiful bridge between language learning and just self-development in general.
That's exactly right. Everything is connected.
Amazing.
Thank you. Happy language learning
Thank you.
from
See
Warsaw.
you guys
And
from
see you
Warsaw.
soon.
Yeah.
Ciao, ciao.